Goed, heel erg bedankt. We gaan eens even horen wat Kumi Naidu would give as a reaction. And I would like to start, Kumi, with a first question, because you're bringing together civil society with a very strong ecological point of view as the new international director of Greenpeace, the director of Greenpeace International, I should say, and then with all your background of GCAP and other North-South NGOs. Professor van Ypersele says that the pressure from civil society will be crucial to bring the world to a full glass of water by the end of the year in Mexico. Is it going to happen? Are we strong enough, and are we one enough as a voice to put that pressure on the political responsibles in the world?
I think as we sit here right now, if we're brutally honest, we are not there yet as civil society. We made some really positive progress in Copenhagen in the sense that climate change was not seen as being put in an environmental box. What I mean by that is, one of the campaigns we were involved in was called the Tick 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 campaign, and I was chairing that campaign, and I can tell you, which was going on for the whole of last year, and the real key challenge for us was, how do we get the unusual suspects, not Greenpeace, WWF, Friends of the Earth, they're the usual suspects who would be involved in the Copenhagen sort of mobilization. Between now and Mexico, we have to broaden the base, because the World Council of Churches, the International Trade Union Confederation and so on all joined us, but we need to now broaden it, because see, the Copenhagen summit was not only about climate change. The Copenhagen summit was about the future of the world's economy at one level. Because if you're saying you're going for a low-carbon economy, low-carbon strategies, it has huge implications for not just thinking about climate, but it intersects with a whole range of different issues. So I agree fully, civil society needs to be mobilized much, much more, and that's where the attention of all of us should go.
And don't you fear that after pumping itself up towards Copenhagen, and then what's been perceived by many, not all, as mostly a failure, that civil society will lose steam rather than drive itself further? So the question is, how can we, or how will you create a new momentum during this year to get there? Because at the same time, we will need the momentum towards September, the MDG summit in New York. People have a lot on the plate today.
That's a good question. But even though we have a lot on our plate, if we make the connections between the different agendas, and if we don't see them as all different silos that have to be addressed separately. So for example, when I came to Brussels on the 5th of December to march with the climate campaigners, I was very happy that Bogdan and many of you, who are seen more traditionally as development folks, were there marching with us. Similarly, what I'm hearing now from the climate movement is that for the September UN focus on MDGs, they are wanting to align their messaging. So that's one of the things that we need to do much better moving forward. But I do think that because we all went to Copenhagen, and there was a lot of like for example, if you were in Copenhagen, everywhere there were these big banners saying Copenhagen, Copenhagen, Copenhagen. And there was such a build-up, and the fact that when we left there, many of us were saying, it was a Floppenhagen, a Nopenhagen, a Jokenhagen, a Brokenhagen, a Cop-Outenhagen, and even somebody said a Fuck-Uppenhagen. Right? And I do think that sense of us having failed is something that we need to push back on, because let's understand what we achieved. We achieved one, we've put to bed the science, because we didn't have President Bush and people around him going on about denying climate change and so on. So one, the Copenhagen summit delivered, I think, the death knell to the climate skeptics. They will try to fight again, but I think they're pretty dead. Secondly, the principle that developing countries should get significant level of financial support to help with adapting was achieved. 100 billion for the first time was talked as a figure. It was an aspirational figure. Again, you know, exactly who was going to put the money and so on wasn't agreed, but the fact that it's there is a positive thing. And thirdly, there was small levels of progress around forestry and so on that was not quite in the public debate. But we need to bank what we achieved, and we need to intensify the pressure. And you know, Archbishop Desmond Tutu, you know, was big inspiration to many of us. Similar to the politician you quoted, he said in Copenhagen, you know, before the end was this thing, he said, the journalist asked him, do you think we'll get a fair, ambitious and legally binding treaty here in Copenhagen? And he said, yes, I think so. And then they said to him, but you know, you're being unrealistic. Where do you have this hope from? And then he said, I have to confess, I'm a prisoner of hope. And I think we all should be prisoners of hope for the next 12 months. And I think if we, you see, we have to tell politicians that we expect them to deliver. If they know that we have given up the fight and thrown in the towel, then the pressure on them to act is going to be very limited.
Professor van Ypersele, u wou nog even daar iets aan toevoegen.
Actually, to be prisoner of hope 1 more year is very short compared to the duration you quoted from someone else earlier today. But what I want to say, I think it's very important to cut I mean, losing the steam. You say losing the steam is the risk we have if we play with the pessimism and if we accept those who say only Copenhagen is a failure. To say Copenhagen is a failure is playing the game of those who want no steam anymore, anywhere.
Oké, met dat beeld van stoom en dat nog komt. Dat komt uit de eerste industriële revolutie. We gaan nieuwe beelden moeten bedenken om de toekomst te maken. En die begint, zoals u weet, vandaag voor de hele koepel van de Noord-Zuidbeweging in Vlaanderen. Heel erg bedankt professor van Ypersele, bedankt Koemi, maar Koemi blijft ook nog even zitten voor ons volgende gesprek. Maar voor we daar aan toe zijn, krijgen we nog even jazzbox die ons Reinhard gewijs naar het volgende stukje brengen. Dank u.